Good morning and welcome to Market of the Moment. It is Thursday again. So we are really excited for this week's Market of the Moment, and we've got some great topics we are planning on discussing. So we are really excited to introduce our guests and all of that. I'm sorry, Mindy's laughing at me already. She's like, she can tell, like, if that timer's gone on, I'm just still doing the stuff on my phone. She's like, Don is not on yet. But here I am, so we're ready to go. And just in case anybody's wondering, next week is Pierogi Festival, so Sharon's going to be driving next week. So, because I'll be out in Whiting, Indiana, throwing down some pierogies. So
you owe me some pierogies. You're going to have to bring some of those home for me. I don't know if they travel.
We'll see. Well, yeah, I don't know that they do. So, but actually, one of our special guests, Mr. Brian Hayes, I have actually been in the kitchen with Brian making pierogies in the past.
Wow.
So
Brian, you probably have some stories. You and I are going to talk later.
Well, those stories are going to cost you because he's got stories on me too. You know?
Yeah. So, I would like to introduce our panel today, and before we jump into our topics, but this morning we are joined by Bernie Chavira. Oh my gosh, I was almost there, Bernie. I got the cha-cha.
Come on, John.
Chavira.
Chavira.
Bernie Chavira. Bernie is,
I have to do the cha-cha now.
Bernie, you have a new name. It's officially Cha-Cha. Sorry.
Yes. Bernie oversees mortgage origination for Defined Mortgage, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Desert Financial Credit Union. And so we're going to be talking to Bernie a little bit later, talking a little bit about the credit union and some of the products that they have available. And Bernie's going to be bringing us the mortgage update as well. So Bernie, thank you for making the time to be on with us today. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Don, for having me and Sharon. I appreciate it, and welcome and good morning to everyone.
Thank you. All right, and as usual, we have Miss Mindy Jones, the owner of the Amy Jones Group at Keller Williams Integrity First. Mindy brings us each week our update on the market, and I've been getting a lot of positive feedback, Mindy. Everybody's so impressed with the inventory increases that you've been bringing each week. So are we going to be able to keep that trend going when we get to your update?
We have such fair weather viewers. I was like the worst person to have on the first 6 months of this, and then now we're like I'm a fan favorite. But yes,
you're giving more inventory. It's kind of like free money.
I know. Jeez. But spoiler alert, we do have some more inventory. It'll be exciting though, because we've got to talk about the change in the environment in selling, and we warned you guys that some of this was coming. So today we'll deep dive into a little bit of those changes and what that could mean for buyers and sellers.
I love it. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you for joining us this morning. So also my co-host, and she refers to me as a partner in crime here. I don't know what crimes we're committing, but I'm ready for it. Miss Sharon Chahoon, the sales manager for Fidelity National Title. Good morning, Sharon.
Channel sales for Fidelity National Title. And
I know. I'm going to give you my title.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. And as you can see with Trey and Brian, these guys are both new to Market of the Moment, and you can see we take this very seriously, and we're very, we like to have a good time while we're here. So, Mr. Trey Smith, the owner of the Copper Collective. Good morning, Trey. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I have no idea what a pierogi is, but I'm excited for you. Very excited.
Okay, we're good. Your life is about to get better. I'm telling you that right now. So,
wait a minute. If we had to hear about who Bobby Bonilla is and his whole history, why we can't take a moment to educate Trey on what a pierogi is?
We're going to get there. But right after I introduce our next guest, Mr. Brian Hayes, and Brian has actually made pierogies with me in the past, and so I think that it's important that Brian helps to our viewing audience to expand their knowledge as well as Trey on what is a pierogi, Brian.
Well, now I'm going to say I'm not Polish. I don't think I can do this as well as you do. I grew up thinking I was a quarter Ukrainian, and then I found out now I was just German. So I don't even have a heritage connection to these things.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
that's what you have in common, because Dawn just told me that sauerkraut, isn't that like a German food, is a very popular thing that you put in a pierogi, which I've never had one of those because I only had them with the mashed potatoes, which I like. And he's like, oh no, those are the worst. I'm like, okay, that's the only pierogi I know.
Well, the mincemeat ones might not be as good as the potato ones. So there's, so all right, for those of you that don't know, a pierogi is like a little dumpling that's filled with some sort of delicious. They boil them after they make the noodle dough. They boil them, then they fry them in some butter. You put some onions and sour cream on top. It's just a whole lot of deliciousness. So, and unfortunately, the way I'm going these days, I'm going to be able to go all the way to Indiana for the pierogi festival and eat like 2 pierogis. So, but okay. So moving on to more real estate related topics. Both Trey and Brian are going to bring us a pretty cool perspective today. So with Trey, Trey is an individual agent over at Keller Williams Integrity First, and he was previously worked on the Brett Tanner team and I'm not sure how long it was, 1.5 years, 2 years you were on the team, Trey?
Almost 3.
Almost 3 years? Okay. Yeah. And so in the last 2 years, Trey has transitioned to an individual agent. Mr. Brian Hayes is over at Best Homes Real Estate, but prior to that, Brian was on those Callaways, and gosh, it was 12 years, Brian, you were on that team?
Oh, it's like 14 or 15 years altogether.
Really good with numbers, as you can see, which is why we got Bernie here to talk about mortgage. So about 14 years on those Callaways, and then Brian has now on his own as well. So we're really excited to hear about, I'd like to start with both of you guys of like what brought you to being on a team when you got started in the business, and then really converting to what's life been like since. Like I'm sure there were things that were exactly as you expected. I'm sure there were many things that weren't. So we're really excited to hear about all that. So Trey, why don't we start with you?
Yeah. What brought me to a team was simply environment and wanting to learn. I actually got on that team by working for free in the mornings before I would go into the mall and work my regular jobs. And eventually I became a paid ISA, and from there was a realtor and just kind of learned the ropes one step at a time. But I was always told, find a mentor, join a team. So I was really thankful to find the right environment to start in.
Excellent. And so you started out, so for those who aren't familiar, an ISA is somebody who's going to be doing, making phone calls, right? And reaching out to people about buying or selling a home, correct?
Yeah, making phone calls and setting appointments.
Excellent. Perfect. So, and then Brian, so what led you to your path to join those Callaways?
Oh, wow. Well, so prior to becoming a licensed agent, I actually owned a company that created virtual tours. And I did that from the late 90s into, our first boom back in 2004. And when the boom happened, the virtual tour business took a nosedive, and I figured I'd just go join the dark side. And, since I was in the industry, obviously I knew what I was doing. So I went completely independent. I joined one of these 100% shops and proceeded to spend 18 months just flailing around clueless. So eventually I kind of, got a grip on my ego and realized I had no idea what I was doing and I needed help. So I started reaching out to agents that I'd done business with, in my previous life. And, when I talked to Joanne Calloway the first time, after having left the virtual tour business, immediately she was like, okay, you need to come on board and we're going to, show you how this business works and make you a tremendous success. So it was, connections that I already had, but then, that outreach that she did of, we want to make you, find your dreams.
Excellent. Yeah, and so obviously it worked for you, right? Because you only stayed for 14 years. So I really was in the early testing of figuring out whether it was going to work.
Yeah, really tenuous job there. So
yeah. So okay, so Trey, when you made the decision to go onto your own, so can you tell us like what that experience has been like since then? Can you give us some insight into what you didn't know and maybe what has lived up to your expectations and maybe what's exceeded your expectations as well?
For sure, for sure. I think a lot of it was making the mistakes, you know, failing first and failing forward. It's a scary world when you decide to leave a team that has system and processes and you just kind of plug in and play, and then you go off into your own and it's that awkward silence. You know, I compare it to like anytime you see an astronaut out in outer space by themselves, it's kind of like that. But then you slowly start to find your own solar system. You explore. I tried out some independent brokerages. I came back to Keller Williams because I love the people here. And you start to build your own kind of, like I said, your own solar system. And you surround yourself with the right people, and it gets a lot easier. You just gotta try everything. And for me, the most important thing was getting rid of my ego, saying, okay, Trey, you don't know everything. Take a step back, focus on the relationships, and focus on learning and figure it out. And a big help for that was Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That's one of my all-time favorite books. And yeah, that's just being yourself really and just figuring it out.
Excellent. And has anything surprised you from the perspective of, okay, I thought this part was going to be way harder, but that's kind of come along easier for you?
I think the whole finding your brand thing was a lot easier or natural than what I thought it was going to be. I think a lot of people struggle with, okay, what am I going to call myself? How am I going to brand myself? But the reality is I had to focus on selling houses, and the brand came second and found myself naturally. I thought it was going to be like I was going to have to hire a PR team or a marketing guru or something like that, but it just kind of comes to you one day, and it's natural. It's when you're solo and trying to figure everything out, there's a lot of go with the flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, great. Okay, Brian, you're up. So tell us that transition. What were the things that you expected that worked out that way? What were the challenges that you didn't expect, and what were the things that maybe came easier than you expected?
Okay, well, I am nothing if not consistent. You know, with me and my ego, I jumped out there and I thought, wow, you know, from day one, I'm just going to go out there and, you know, be on track to be doing 100 transactions my first year independent. And of course, that's not how it worked. You know, I came from this environment where everything was taken care of. You know, I was very, very good at a very small portion of, you know, the overall business. And, you know, when you're on the team, you get so used to your perspective, it's hard to see just how much, you know, you have to handle as an independent agent. So, you know, getting out there on my own, it was very interesting, all of the blind spots that I had. And this is despite, you know, 15 years in the business. I've been with a bunch of different coaches, you name it. So it was eye-opening. So I spent 3 months, again, just trying to develop lead sources, getting used to a different part of town of doing business, a different way of doing business than I had before that. Now, that being said, you know, when I was on the team, we had, you know, very specific lead sources, and, you know, they were very big in Scottsdale, and it was just kind of used to the flow of those conversations. And, you know, we did a lot of open houses. You know, I did 2 to 4 open houses a week for probably a decade. And that's where a lot of my business came from. And shifting over, you know, I shifted over in the middle of, you know, COVID and the shutdowns and everything else. And obviously the open houses were not going to work. So, you know, changing to more online lead sources and, you know, calling and all of these more traditional ways of going about business, I was shocked to find out how much easier it is to be on a phone call than sitting in an open house trying to make a connection. For me personally, you know, it's one-on-one. I'm in control. If I don't like the conversation, I can just hang up. It's really cool.
Well, and I think that's an important thing you said there, Brian, about how, you know, for you personally it works that way, because it doesn't work that way for everybody, right? So, and I've worked with a lot of people, and it's funny. I was sharing with Sharon yesterday the story of I was in the West Valley, and I did a phone frenzy where we had a list of some really special data of people who were potentially interested in selling their home. And we had a list of 200 people, and we had 7 people calling for about an hour. and they set. I think right now we're at 15 appointments that were set off of that, and the interesting thing was that when I was listening to people on the phone, that wasn't this high level of polish, right? It wasn't this super skilled, super slick. It was people saying, you know, they were working their way through it all, and they were still getting the confirmed appointments because of what they had to offer. And you know, there's a lot to be said for being yourself and all that. And it also kind of brings us back to Trey's point about the branding. And the importance in that you can find that, right? But don't stop working while you're waiting to figure out what that brand is going to be and all that, because you're really only losing time, and that's one of the things you can't replenish.
Yeah.
So now you guys have both been Trey, you're about a year and a half on your own.
Yep.
Brian, you're approaching about a year, right? That you've been on your own. Is that about right?
Just cleared my 7th month on my own. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we got a little ways. Again, math not my strong point. So this is why I work for a title company. They don't let me touch any of the papers.
Maybe you should just not quote numbers anymore today, Don. I bring up something that. Oh, sorry, Mindy. I was just going to say one thing on the last thing you said was that, you know, the one point that was very clear on what you said on the phone call is that really there's not an exact science to doing it. I think really what it comes down to is actually making the phone call. And I think we've even talked about this with, you know, even our team and making calls and things. It's absolutely, you know, if you're doing it, the action will come with results. There's really no perfect way. It's just an honest approach and actually doing it. And I think that's the hardest part, is just picking up the phone, you know, for anybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, and what was really interesting to me was, you know, I had all kinds of mental stuff going around the outbound phone calls. And then once I started making them, again, I found, hey, these are really easy, and I enjoy it a lot, which is weird because, you know, I'm generally a highly introverted person. So it was shocking to me that was the case. But then the consistency, like picking up and showing up every single day and making those phone calls, it was life-changing, you know, because then instead of making once a week, I'd go and show up for the phone calls, and it was tough, and you'd spend, you know, some time psyching yourself up. Now, you know, every day at 9 a.m., I just start making the phone calls. I went on vacation. We were in Maui last month, and I was jonesing to make phone calls because it becomes a part of it. You know?
He's like, don't mind the noise of the background. It's just the ocean.
Yeah. It's just terrible. Don't worry about it. Do you have a house to sell or not?
I haven't cold called anybody in days.
That's funny. Oh my
God. The beauty of that is,
go on, Mindy.
The beauty of that is, what more value is there of lead generation than when you can see the fruits of your labor by being in Hawaii on vacation? I mean, I think the problem that we have with lead generation is we pick something that's new to try, and we're not very good at it to start, because who's very good at something that they haven't never done before? And then we don't see value in it because we don't get a return from it right away. And so then our brain doesn't assign value. And when your brain doesn't assign value, guess what? It also says yes to distractions and no to lead gen. And so what better way to retrain your brain of the value of your lead gen than to continue your consistency in that beautiful moment where you can say, look at the value of the work that I put in.
Right. True.
You know what's an observation I've got right now is that, like, we didn't go down this path today, like, okay, well, we're going to talk about prospecting, right? But then here we are, and with the fact that both of you, your transition has been dependent on prospecting, right? So Trey, you did a lot of prospecting as part of what you were doing with outbound calls when you were part of the team. And then Brian, you know, you had a different type of prospecting, right? You were prospecting in open houses, but you always knew that this was an area. You and I have had many conversations over the years about making outbound calls for the prospecting. So But that's the common theme that we hear with both of you guys, is that's been a very important part of your transition. You didn't just leave those teams and like, okay, cool. Now who's calling? And which I think is where we see a lot of people fall off, right? They think that it's going to be like this, obviously like Mindy with her team, there is a lot of time and effort put in to getting those phones to ring and getting people to reach out. And when you're not part of that anymore, it can be shocking to people.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's a great point, because, on those Callaways, they've got such a machine, right? And Mindy, I know you're the same way, where you have all of this business that's created, and, the team agents, we don't see any of that. That's like the iceberg. It's all below the water. It all happened before we get there. And so as an independent agent, you're like, how does this stuff happen? Why isn't my phone ringing?
So I love this conversation. Like, I have so many questions that I want to ask you guys, because I do run a team, and I believe that I run a team because I want to be a good leader. And so I believe that if I can help, in my case, it's women, but if I can help real estate agents be successful at what they do and be able to live productive lives, both personally and professionally, then I will be successful through their success. So I stay up at night thinking of how to provide more value, how to change our structure, how to go. I mean, that is where my head, is spent. And so what I love about this conversation is that I do believe that success can come in many, many different forms. That is the beauty of being independently employed. You get to decide what your world looks like. And for many, being a part of a team provides the accountability and the culture and some of these other pieces of the business. And there are many people that are successful in doing all of those things as a solo agent. And I am always just interested in what makes people successful, whether you're on a team or whether you're an individual. What are those things? What are the habits? I'm not looking for the shiny objects, because I've been in the business long enough to know that those don't exist. So I'm not looking for what is your number one lead source, or I want to know what makes you successful. I guess my first question is, what does your daily schedule look like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to say, first of all, congrats, Brian, for going to Maui. That's awesome. But I'm super, super grateful from being on a team, because we got to see the behind the scenes of how to run systems and processes. And most importantly, for me at least, it showed me what was truly possible. It really painted a much bigger picture, which I don't think some people realize in this industry, that you can go from being a solo agent to being a multi-business owner over the course of 4 to 5 years, which is amazing. As far as like my daily habit, my daily routines is schedule is everything. You have to be persistent with your schedule. I shoot to get in the office by 8:15. I get all my lists ready for the phones, and I'm on the dialer by 9, and I'm calling till 11:30 or 12, depending on appointments and things like that. One thing that does not leave my calendar without fail is my follow-up. And when you're solo, you don't really have that accountability that you did on a team. You're not going to weekly huddles or daily huddles, giving your numbers for the day. So you have to kind of track yourself. And if you're not doing your follow-up, you'll feel that pain in 90 to 120 days. There's a lot of delayed satisfaction and gratification in this business. And the best way to maintain that satisfaction is to be consistent with our daily actions. So I try to keep it simple and open at the same time.
Excellent. Well, sorry we're interrupting dial time today, but we do appreciate you taking the time out for us.
For you, not for you.
Okay.
Brian, how about you? Does that look different for you, your daily schedule?
Yeah, no, I mean, Trey actually, he literally stole the words right out of my mouth. The simple and consistent is the thing. And, showing up every day, and, once you have that schedule built, and it's so much easier getting up in the morning. And, even though I'm not on a team anymore, I've created a small group of agents in our company where we do a morning huddle every single morning, because it's good to have that accountability. It's good to be able to talk about your goals and celebrate your victories, and and talk about what you could have done differently. And that was something in my first couple of months independent that, I was really lacking in. I had a lot of things I was going to do. And Mindy, I know you mentioned, you're at a point in your career where there's no more shiny objects. Well, I'll tell you, the first month in the business, everything is a shiny object. I swear I spent 3 months just chasing after all the possibilities. So yeah, getting that perfect daily schedule and tightening it up and being really relentless about it it's been really life-changing. I mean, I spent 3 months again flailing around, but now I've got my calendar is set. I know when I'm doing my calls. I know when I'm doing my admin work. I know when I'm trying to set my appointments for. And then I also have the categories where I know, okay, a face-to-face meeting with the client will trump anything. I'll give up call time for that, but I'm not going to give up call time for admin work. So just prioritizing things made a huge difference.
I think so many people. I'm sorry, Mindy. But I just wanted to emphasize one of the points you guys just made, and that's I think that what happens with so many people in this business is that they come in with this thought of like all of this freedom, right? I don't have a boss anymore, especially if they're going to go individual without being a team. I don't have a boss anymore. I get to make my own structure. My structure is sleeping till 9, and then thinking around the day, and then tomorrow I'll make my calls, and without all that. But you have to now be that manager of yourself, right? You still have to have that structure, because what really comes really easily without it is no trips to Maui, no trips anywhere, right?
Exactly.
So it's important that you are that level of commitment is in your business. So Mindy, I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
No, it's okay. I think that you're right. A lot of people come into this industry thinking about the freedom or the flexibility, if you will. And I think that those things can be accomplished, but like any other goal, I think they come with hard work and time on task. They're not something that show up right away. And then really, if you want them to show up, they have to show up because you created a life by design. It can't happen by accident. So if you're a mom and you want to be able to drop your kids off in the morning and pick them up from school at the end of the day, but also make enough money to, pay your bills or to contribute in whatever fashion you find appropriate for your family, then there's got to be a specific way that you go about doing that to create that space for you to do that. So, I'm a firm believer that everybody is given an equal opportunity. Obviously, I believe there are people in this world who aren't given the same chance or the same exposure or the same education or the same circumstance or support system. But I think there's a lot of people that do come in with an equal opportunity or an equal playing field, but not everyone is able to make it, right? So, I look at my circumstances and what I've accomplished over the last 20 years, and I found myself in a variety of different circumstances throughout that time period, from getting food boxes from a food bank to having 3 jobs to going down to 2 jobs and 1 job to, it's been a process, and I know people who've been on that same journey without the same outcome. So what I'd love to know from you guys is, what do you guys think are, 1 or 2 or 3 of the most important characteristics to be successful in this business, or even mindsets or beliefs? I'd really like to understand from you guys, what do you think it is that has allowed you to make the transition, albeit new, has allowed you to make that transition and to be successful?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's mindset is everything, and that's one thing that I learned in this business. It was drilled into my brain is your mindset matters. Your mindset matters. And when I first got into it, I was like, okay, whatever. Like that's a cool magic trick or whatever. But no, it truly is. Your thoughts become things, and your mindset is crucial. I would say, as far as like characteristics, being persistent but also aggressively patient and not trying to force things is huge in this business, because when you go off to set a goal or get after a big task, right, the world is going to test you. regardless. There's going to be some things that will come up that will have you questioning if you're making the right decision. And your mindset and getting rid of those limiting beliefs, am I supposed to be doing this, or should I go back to being on a team, or should I go get a regular job because I haven't had a closing in a couple of months because I wasn't prospecting properly or I didn't follow up. All those little things that get in the way comes down to your mindset. So you have to stay sharp. You have to always be educating yourself, always be reading books the most you can to kind of fuel that source. The more you educate yourself on your mindset, the stronger it gets. One of my all-time favorite books that helped me with that was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Also, Conscious Luck by Gay Hendricks. Those two books are huge for your mindset. And I can't speak enough on how important it is to maintain not just a positive one, but just a solid mindset.
Excellent. Brian, what about for you?
Well, the two things that really come to mind for me, and I'm not going to speak to mindset just because it is huge and it's one of the major components, but obviously we've already put it out there. For me, it's that consistently showing up, right? Most of my life I was all about the big wins, right? I'm looking to be the first this, the best that, I'm looking for nuclear explosions. And in this business, that's not, at least in the beginning, how it's made. It's the small things. It's the little phone calls. It's the staying in touch. It's remembering the little details about your clients and your prospects and keeping track of everything. And that's been a tremendous shift for me is, instead of going for the big commission check, I'm now paying attention to little things, and paying attention to little things leads to better connections, more compassion, and really walking through how your clients are viewing these things. So I don't know, being a better human being is really, I think, one of the things that's made me a really, really good agent. I've always been very proud of my accomplishments, but now listening to my clients and living their lives, it's, I don't know, so much more fulfilling, and it makes me more successful. I mean, it's so much easier to connect and to create business through that lens than the lens of me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can't thank you guys enough for sharing your journey the way you guys have and being as open with it as you have today. So thank you guys, and I am sure we'll be seeing you guys back. And I know you're going to hang out while we're checking in on our updates. But you guys, thanks again so much for being so open and willing to share. And we know that there's great things ahead for both of you. So
that's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, Don, Trey, and Brian, something that resonated with me very quick before the updates. I think it's clear there's no shortcuts, and Mindy's saying it too. She laid it out over 20 years, and you guys are an example of that. Figuring out you got to park the ego, do the work, show up, have the discipline, and then good things will happen, right? And sometimes, you get distracted by the big wins, like Brian said, but you can't do without the little things that add up to big things. So really great to see that that's working for you. And I think the good news is that it is simple, but it takes a lot of discipline and hard work to get there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was recently talking with one of my colleagues, and they said, well, I want to be Don. And I'm like, well, who doesn't? But no. But she said, I want to be Don. And I'm like, you know what? It's taken 7 years to become this overnight success that I've become. And so, but it really does take a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of groundwork and all of that. And so, Bernie, thanks for pointing that out as well, because I think that's something we can all look at. So,
well, you know what I think it is too, and Trey said this, and I love this. I'm stealing it, Trey. I wrote it down, to be aggressively patient. I love that, because we have some new folks on our team, and patience when you want something in sales is the toughest thing to have. Okay, because we're all about immediate results. We do something, we're like, okay, I did it. Where's my money? Where's my results? But if you are aggressively patient and you keep doing the things that you need to be doing over and over and over and over and over, it will result in results. There's no way it won't. Activity leads to results. So if you're doing those activities and you're staying aggressively patient in that process, it's only a matter of time where it's going to come through. So very well said, Trey. Great story. Brian, always great story, and seeing you as well. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks guys, and we're going to now make our pivot over to our mortgage update, and Mr. Bernie Chavira over from Define Mortgage. Bernie, thank you so much, and thanks for playing along with the cha-cha part. And thank you so much for joining us today. And for those who aren't familiar with Define Mortgage, can you first start off with maybe a little explanation of who Define is, and then we can go into the update from there.
Sure thing. Define Mortgage is a subsidiary of Desert Financial Credit Union. So we've been in the industry for many, many years as Desert Financial originated in the Valley. Desert Financial is the largest credit union in Arizona, one of the largest in the country. And we do a ton of things to give back to the community, as I'm sure you have seen over the years. And so one of the things we did over the last couple of years is created a subsidiary that Define Mortgage to not only continue on that journey to help more Arizonans become homeowners, but also to help other credit unions that need the help with mortgage origination. So that's kind of where we pivoted with Define Mortgage. And I lead the origination side of Define, been with the company for just over 20 years and been in the industry for that long. So I've seen the hills and valleys of the industry, been part of it firsthand, been an originator for many years myself. And it's been quite the journey, and I can relate to a lot of what Trey and Brian and Mindy said. But the hard work does pay off. So happy to be here joining you guys today.
Yeah, thank you, and we do appreciate it, Bernie. So, over the last several weeks, we've had a lot of conversations about the different things that are impacting the mortgage rates and what home buyers should expect as a result, or people who are looking at refinancing a loan. So when we're looking at that, we know that news from the Fed is always something that's looked at. Inflation is something that's looked at. What the market is doing right now, what the unemployment numbers are looking like, are all impacting on what we're seeing on rates. So in the last week or two, what have your observations been around that, Bernie? What should we be thinking about?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And, actually the last couple of days have been pretty eventful. You probably know that, Chairman Powell had a couple of testimonies, one yesterday, one this morning. And, a month ago, most economists would have thought that by now the Fed would have announced that they're tapering down their purchasing of mortgage-backed securities. And that created some turmoil, if you will, because if they taper down the buying of mortgage-backed securities, then that means the yield needs to go up to continue to create that demand. That means the interest rates can go up. So not good news in that regard a month ago when everyone was thinking that was going to happen,
right,
just around the corner. Well, yesterday, the Fed and Chairman Powell in his testimony made it pretty clear that the economy's not recovered, it's not where it needs to be, and the Fed has no expectation at this moment to taper down that buying of mortgage-backed securities. That is seen as good news. That is seen as giving us more stability, creating less of a likelihood that we're going to see a huge increase to mortgage interest rates. So we saw that as good news. Now, we have to take it with a grain of salt because we can quickly see a 180 to that sentiment before the end of the year. So I'm not going to speculate and say that rates at this level are here to stay for the foreseeable future, meaning to me by the end of the year. But there is more likelihood that could happen. So that gives us a little bit more sleep insurance. So, it's still historically low rates. You guys keep hearing that. Yes, they're still, they're a little bit higher than what we started at or where we were a year ago. But, there's no time to wait. If you keep trying to, as a buyer, wait to see rates back to where they were a year ago, there's more of a likelihood you're going to miss that chance and continue to pay more for the same home. Not to mention the appreciation that's happening on that side. So I'm not saying, to continue to stay on the fence. My advice to anyone is move. If you're ready to buy and willing to buy, this is a time to do it. And there's a few other things that come into play with the comments the chairman made yesterday. Was he talked about the relationship between appreciation of homes and interest rates. So even though interest rates are officially staying low and appreciation because of demand is very, very high, if the Fed decides to taper back the purchase of mortgage-backed securities and we see an increase in interest rates, there is no guarantee that that's going to really slow down the appreciation level of homes because the demand is so high. We have a supply and demand challenge. And even though it could slow it down slightly because of the high demand, I personally don't think that increasing interest rates are going to really slow down appreciation much. So again, if you're a home prospective buyer and you're waiting for a lower rate, it's really not a good play when you're going to continue to see appreciation at the level that we're seeing it now, or higher than normal. And I'm sure Mindy can attest to that later, that there's really, with the demand we're seeing, especially here in Arizona, we don't see an end in sight to that anytime soon.
Well, really what it comes down to is the situation that you're putting yourself in by waiting is you have to worry because the price of that home is going to keep going up with appreciation, right? And then you have to worry about the price of the money going up simultaneously, which then can take that dream home and put it out of your reach, right? So with those two factors, the longer you wait, then the more likely you're going to be affected by one, if not both of those factors, because we've all had conversations. I know everybody on the screen right now has had conversations with somebody who has said, well, I want to wait till things calm down. And there's a lot of reasons why that's not a good play. The money's going to cost you more for the same home. The home is probably going to cost you more, and so you're really putting yourself in a very challenging situation when you do that.
Yeah, and you know what, when it comes to that in dollars and cents, what appreciation means to a borrower, I read something from a couple of weeks ago that Black Knight put out some data that showed that compared to the beginning of the year to now, based on average price of home, average appreciation, borrowers are seeing an increase of about $191 more per month they have to spend to buy that same home, the average home. And that's an 18% increase in their payment to income ratio. So that is significant. So to your point, if you're really just put on the fence waiting for things to calm down, and you were waiting at the beginning of the year, now you're paying $200 more a month on average to get the same house.
Yeah, and maybe that maxes out what you're able to buy, right? Maybe that takes you out of the market on that home that you could have bought 6 months ago, and now you have to go smaller or further away or what have you as a result.
Exactly. So, we could be out of the market. There are people that have a certain maximum threshold they can afford. So it certainly could put you out of that. And that is something that we're experiencing here in the Valley with some borrowers. Of course, we have a lot of folks coming from out of state that, have a lot of money in their pockets. So you're seeing, a lot of that not necessarily hitting those markets. The people coming from California selling at much higher prices, of course, are not seeing that. But people that have, that have lived here and have grown up here and now are trying to buy their home, I feel for those people. I'm sure Mindy has a lot of clients that, man, they've been saving and waiting for the right time, and they're getting beat out left and right by, all these folks coming from other states. So it is challenging, continues to be a challenge, but it just stresses the fact that you really have to partner with professionals in the industry to make sure they guide you. They're there for you for the long run. They know how to, be aggressive, but also be smart. It's not just, I want to look for an aggressive agent or an aggressive loan officer. It's someone that really is educated and is smart and looking out for your best interest. So, it's still a challenge. We're seeing volume still very, very good for us in the origination side. On the refi side, I'm sure you guys have seen and heard all of the cash out refinancing that's happening. That is helping consumers. They're able to consolidate debt. We do a lot of that, still right now. And refi cash out is back in a big way. I think I read something else where the average homeowner now has about $150,000 in equity in their home. I mean, that's a lot of money that they can put to work. So it certainly helps the economy when they can use that to maybe finally buy that second home or start the business that they've been waiting to have the capital to start. So all that comes into play, and things are looking up. I do think, hopefully, knock on wood, as long as the Fed doesn't make a 180 on what the comments they made, we hopefully will see steady, similar rates for the through the end of the year. But what they say about speculation economists, they actually have I think I read it again, the least stressful job is to be an economist, because you can just be wrong and nothing happens. I mean, they move forward at the time. And it's like, okay, yeah, I was off.
Yeah. Well, Bernie, thank you so much for the update. If you'd like more information about getting in touch with Define Mortgage, you can reach out to any of us, and we're happy to put you in touch with Bernie as a great resource. I know that you guys are doing refinances and HELOCs as well. So if you are in need of anything in those areas, we are certainly happy to put you in touch with Bernie. So thank you for joining us today, Bernie.
Thank you.
So Mindy, I know you're starting with great news.
First, I just want to say this panel today is rock star. Like all of these guys on this screen are totally speaking my language, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. Bernie, that was an awesome update. I think you made it super understandable for the people that are watching, whether we've got real estate agents who are new to the business or aren't necessarily plugged into a data source. This is definitely a place for them to come every week, and you came with a great explanation. I know that we have a ton of clients that watch. I know our clients at the Mindy Jones group mention it. At least once a week, someone will come to me and say, hey, I have a question about something you said on your thing that you do on Thursday. Right now, we know what they're talking about. So it's important. It's important that we're bringing this information to consumers. So I really appreciate all of you guys for showing up today. We do have some interesting updates to share. I do like that Bernie mentioned there are some clients that they are having a really difficult time with the market the way that it is. And I think it's really important that we don't leave anybody behind. You guys know that we're big supporters of our community. We do a lot of work with a lot of organizations, and one of them is the House of Refuge, which provides some transitional housing for folks through programming that they provide there. They also have a ton of resources for families that are facing issues with housing. So I think as people in the housing industry, it's important that we continue to remain vigilant about sharing connections with families who are challenged to make a move in this environment, because there are some families who it is very difficult, both from a rental and a purchase perspective. And I think, being from here, like Bernie said, I am from here. And so I certainly have seen a huge change in pricing. And I think for some families, it has made it difficult, if not impossible. For others, I think a lot of it is about mindset. And I think for a long time here in Arizona, we lived under the "but we're not California" thought process. And what we really are is we're a place where the majority of the months out of the year, we can go outside and we can enjoy our weather. We are a hot spot for both employment industries of all sectors. And I think that we're going to have to start to realize that we're going to be a desirable place for many years to come if we continue to do the right thing here. So certainly we have seen quite a bit of appreciation, about 35% annually. I think February through May will go down in history as one of the fastest appreciating times in Arizona. And if you bought a house right before that time or any time before that time, congratulations, because you probably made $100,000 this year. I don't think that we'll see anything like that ever again. I do think the demand will remain strong, but I do think, like any healthy market, we will start to stabilize, and we have started that process. We've got more listings coming to the market at a faster rate than we've had since the beginning of last year. So we're watching kind of the pace at which those new listings come to the market, because that will really help us determine when we would enter into a so-called flat or balanced market, in which appreciation is really at a very minimum, maybe 0 to even 0.5%, which if you annualize 0.5% appreciation in a month, you're talking about 6% appreciation in a year. And remember that there's parts of the country that go 20, 30 years living in a home and they make 3% appreciation on their home. So I think people in Arizona really have gotten spoiled by what we've been able to do from a real estate perspective. And I think the beauty of that is that we've got a lot of padding there, right? We've gone from 35% down. We've got a little ways to go, and still for this to be a very healthy market for people to buy and sell in. We have seen about a 92% increase in inventory between $400,000 and $800,000 just since February. So if it feels like there's a little more to look for out there, you're right. There are a few more options for you. And that is a huge jump. So we're sitting about 30% less inventory year over year, but which is still significant. And to Bernie's point, prices are not going to go down until there are not enough houses, or there are too many houses, right, for people to buy. But I think what people have to remember and put into perspective is just in February, we were talking about being 80% less in inventory than what we had year over year. So it's a pretty big gain that we've been able to make in the last few months. And I think because of that, you're going to feel some emotional friction in our buyers and sellers as they start to adapt. And so, for the seller side, I think we're going to start to see less offers. So again, we're not going to see days on market go down, because less offers means that you still got offers that first weekend on the market, which means you're still selling within a couple of days, right? So that days on market isn't going to start trending down until you're not getting your first offer for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And that's not typically what you're seeing in the market. But I think that you will start to see less offers come in because we've got less showings. You've got some people that have bowed out of the market because they can't. Some people have bowed out because they're not quite educated. And some people have bowed out because the selling conditions or the environment has just been too tough for them to take. So I think after the summer, is my personal opinion, but I think after the summer, things, people come back from vacations. This is the first year that people have gone on vacations again. This is the first summer since COVID that we might be seeing any sense of seasonality on top of these market conditions at the same time. I have a feeling that when people come back, there's going to be a little bit of a bump back up. Again, nothing like what we saw in February or March early this year, but we've got plenty of qualified buyers. The family making the median income in Arizona can still afford between 58 and 62% of what's on the market, as compared to people like San Francisco or New York, where they've got 12 to 13% is all that people can afford. And so we're still remaining a very affordable city or state. But I do think that we're going to see less offers coming through. So sellers, be prepared for that. Don't get 5 and ask how much longer you should wait to get the other 5 or the other 10, right? The most eager people are the ones that saw your house the minute it came on the market, because they're pre-qualified and they've been waiting for a house just like yours. So don't be surprised that that happens, and don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I also think we're going to see some price reductions. Again, that doesn't mean cheaper houses. It just means people pricing as if they were going to have 3 to 5% appreciation by the time that they list, and maybe they're only seeing 1% appreciation month over month. So watch out for that. And I think finally, you will see sellers still getting their price. Again, I don't think prices are going to drop, but I think you're going to see some more concessions in there. So you might see someone who says, hey, I'm willing to give you full price for your house, or even over asking. I don't think we're done with over asking, but I'm not going to waive the appraisal entirely, or I'm not going to waive the appraisal at all, or I'm definitely not going to shorten my inspection period, or this, that, and the other, right? I think you're going to start to see some more of those conversations, and that is all very healthy. It is all very healthy that we moderate the insanity that we saw at the beginning part of this year and get back to a place where we're not holding up the market because of some of the environments that people just simply can't play in. So I'm really excited for the second half. I think, Bernie sharing that interest rates are going to stay low should be a great news for our buyers who are concerned that they're trying to beat some clock. I think knowing that the selling conditions are changing is good news for sellers, although it is difficult for them to process. I had one ask me the other day, can we get we're ready. I think we're ready. We've been thinking about it, but I think we're ready. Can we get a 60-day lease back? And it was the first time someone has asked me that this year, where I paused. And I said, yes, we are still doing that, and we are still seeing that, but it's not like it was 60 days ago. Every listing in MLS does not say sellers would like to stay for 90 days or 6 months. Every offer that you get, the agent is not calling and saying, okay, what can we do to sweeten the deal? How about a lease back? They could stay for 90 days and they don't have to pay anything. Like that's not as common of a conversation as we were having even just 30 days ago. So can you still get those things? Absolutely, because you're the seller and you're in charge. So what we do is we find out what you need, and then we craft a solution to help you get there. And there's a variety of different solutions to help you get there that don't include just going to the market. That include working with people who will give you those lease backs. So yes, you can get what you want. We just will give you the options of how you get there. And then you decide if that's the solution that you want to go with. So definitely is a changing environment. Definitely is a very opportune time for buyers and sellers if they can make a move. Still a very great time to add to your rental portfolio if you have the ability to make purchases, take out funds from your primary residence and be able to do that. You're going to have somebody else paying your mortgage and probably then some, given the rental rate increases. Meanwhile, you'll be the one to get the appreciation when you sell. So no bad news from this side, just probably some emotional friction that we can help with.
Yeah. Well, great update, Mindy. And I think it's important, I talked to a couple people in the last week who said, I'm afraid of overpaying and I don't want, and I'm going to wait till people stop asking or offering over list price. And my point to them was, well, overpaying is very relative, right? Because something is worth as much as somebody's willing to pay for it, and if multiple other people are willing to pay the same price or near the same price that you're offering, are you really overpaying? And especially when you still have really great, 6 to 10% appreciation annually, then are you really in a position where you're overpaying? And secondly, when you're not the person who's offering over list price, well, somebody else just did that for you and pushed that price off of what that house went up for. So while this house, is not going for $50,000 over list, the houses down the street did last month. And now when this person priced their home, they priced that with that in mind, using those comps. So you're still, it's not that you're getting any kind of great deal by not paying over asking. It's that it's just already built in. So that's the important way to look at it. Oh, and Mindy's gone. So what did you guys do to Mindy?
Internet, I think in general
today,
because I don't know if it was just me, but I'm in and out kind of going on. There she is.
I don't know what happened, Mindy. You disappeared there. Yeah.
I'm sorry. All of a sudden.
Okay.
Anyway,
like
yes, everything
I
that
was
Don
just
said.
a big mic drop on Mindy. She's just like, boom. I said it. I'm out.
Like Mindy out.
Yeah. Well, you guys, it's time for us to wrap up, and I really appreciate all of your time today and everything that you guys have contributed to this conversation. I am sure that many will be taking a lot of value from this as well. As I mentioned, next week, Sharon is going to be running the show and Ms. Dina Jones will be back. So thank you guys for covering me for next week. And we will see you guys all. I'll be back in a couple weeks, but Sharon will be back next week. Oh, and Sharon's got
and Don, I want to do one little reminder for everybody. Don't forget about the Fidelity Media Room, because we are doing videos, lots and lots and lots of videos out of there. Get with your Fidelity sales executive. We'd love you to come out and do a little market update of your own little video maybe, or talk about why you're such a great resource, and help you get some exposure out there on social media. So don't forget to get with your Fidelity sales executive and get scheduled in there. So thank you all. Trey, Bernie, thanks for being here. Brian, Amy, as always, and Don, we'll miss you next week for sure. But Mindy and I know we're gonna come up with something fun. Well,
maybe. You guys have a good time. So, all right, you guys. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.